Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. Let's talk boxing. A massive fight this weekend. You know, down in old New Orleans, there's this mythical monster that's said to roam the rivers, and he's known as the Rougarou. Well, he's up against the Dream. It's Regis Prograis defending his WBC title against the undisputed lightweight champion in Devon Haney. This is a superb fight. We're going to get technical. We're going to break it down. Who do I think is going to win this fight and why? Instead of going over every element of their technical games, I'm going to approach this a little bit differently because I've covered the technical elements of Devon Haney on so many occasions on this channel in previous videos. Instead, I'm going to talk a little bit about Devon Haney's fight against Vasyl Lomachenko and show you some footage. Because I personally felt that Loma won 7 rounds to 5. On rewatch, I still feel he won 7 rounds to 5, but I'm closer to 8-4 than I am to 6-6. So I felt the wrong man got the decision. But even if you feel that Devon Haney legitimately won the fight, you'll have to concede that Lomachenko had a lot of success in nullifying a lot of what Devon was trying to do and capitalizing on certain other areas. So perhaps it provides a blueprint that other fighters can look at and say, okay, how can I learn from that to try and capitalize on what Devon Haney does? And then we'll ask whether Prograis has it in him, technically, physically, biomechanically, to be able to capitalize on those things, and where he might also be able to have the sort of success that Loma did not have. And then we'll make a prediction as to who I think will come out on top. We'll start off, though, briefly talking about Devon Haney. Everybody talks about his jab. And yes, he does have a brilliant jab. But what people don't talk about is why it's so effective. The truth is, the reason he's so good with it is because after landing it, he's able to change the level and get out of range quickly. Steve Kim did an interview with Regis Prograis this week, and he asked Regis, does he think Haney's slick or athletic? And he was saying, I don't actually think he's slick. But what the issue is here is that he's so athletic that he's able to be slippery. If he punches you, pulls out quickly, changes the level, gets out, he's very, very hard to pin down. So yeah, he might not be slick in the sense of going up to the turnbuckle and rolling and deflecting shots off of shoulders and elbows. He's not that type of fighter, but he's so hard to get to. And what also happens with his ability to quickly bend down forward and change that level is it facilitates the clinch, because it enables him to come low, make you overreach because you've been trying to get to this longer guy, and then come back up with underhooks and tie you up. You're chasing after this moving object and you're running after it as fast as you can. All of a sudden it stops moving and comes towards you and you go and clatter into it. So he's very, very hard to deal with in that regard. It's very successful. In the build up to the Lomachenko fight, I also did a technical breakdown video where I was talking about how Haney punctures the body from range particularly well and how I thought that he would have a lot of success there against Vasyl Lomachenko. And people after the fight were surprised he had as much success as he did to the body. I wasn't. We spoke about that pre-fight. Having said all of that, I do think that Lomachenko's exits and re-entries brought him a lot of success against the bodywork of Devon Haney. During the telecast, a lot of the credit Haney was getting for the bodywork, and there was some great stuff too, but you could see it was either falling low or falling short. Loma is stepping out so quickly, he's essentially rolling with the punch. And often the punch isn't really landing. It's like the glove touching skin. It's the equivalent of throwing towards someone's cheek. And he does what Tim Witherspoon used to call rubbernecking and turn his neck quickly. And it's like grazing of the cheek. But even when Haney was to land a significant shot to the body, you saw that Loma had the fantastic balance and ability to bounce out and come back in. Whether he was shifting his feet and then shifting them back in to change the stance to step out and step back in, whether he was using a pendulum step to jump back and jump back in, it didn't matter. He found varied ways of being able to step out, come back in and punish Haney. You see that's a big right hand to the body from Haney, and immediately Loma offers a big left hand in return, which hurts Haney enough to make him retreat back onto the ropes, and then Loma lets go of a combination and lands consistently and flush on him. The point is, you have to be light on your toes to be able to deal with the length of Haney, because he's got such a wide stance. When he really commits to that body shot, as he's then pulling out, you need to be able to follow him back out. Another area that brought Lomachenko a lot of success is that he was able to read the patterns of Devon Haney when he was bending. And that enabled him to have offensive success. It wasn't just getting back in and out, because that's about range, but he was accurate. You could see that a lot of his shots were short. He's not overloading, especially when Haney's right in front of him. The shots are straight. When Devon Haney's then bending forward, he's ripping a short uppercut. If he's going to throw hooks and Devon Haney's trying to change the level, the last thing you want to do is throw big wide hooks where Haney's ducking underneath them. So what Loma would do is change the trajectory of those types of shots. Rather than going from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., he would instead perhaps go from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. And you can see that in this sequence here. You see how they're almost shovel hooks, they're uppercuts. And when the hooks are horizontal, they're shorter. He's making sure he's hitting the target because Haney's struggling to reset and punch with Loma when he's under duress. He's just trying to change the level and get out of the way. And this is something that people need to look at when they're fighting Devin, because if you're going to be launching these big wide hooks, you're going to be missing wildly. Another area where Lomachenko had an awful lot of success, which is vital against Devin Haney, is snuffing the clinch. And he was able to do that with angles, leverage, and control, head control, and also erupting on the inside when Haney was trying to come at him. You see, an awful lot of people don't understand that in order to stop a clinch, you have to know how to do it. And there are also different types of clinches. Well, when Devon Haney was coming from a low position, Lomachenko would almost use his forearm across his neck and lean on him to stop that potential thrust. You see, by coming low, that's how Devon Haney initiates the clinch. So when he would come from that low position, he'd lean on him, but not fall into him so that he can get his arms wrapped around him. He's almost making himself weightless, coming off of his own feet and just literally coming off the floor and riding on the top of the back and the top of the neck of Devon Haney. And when Haney was to put too much weight on that front foot, he would then step around him. He would also do that if Haney was to come low from a bladed stance. As you can see in that clip there, when Devon Haney seeks to come on top and over the top and get his arms over the back of your neck, the type of clinch Muhammad Ali used to do, for instance, in that case, Loma would come low, create more space between his own midriff and Haney's midriff and let go of a combination. He'd erupt on the inside. And it's very difficult to tie up a man when you're trying to grab the top of his neck to lean on him and he's ripping vicious hooks into your ribs. So whether Haney was seeking to come from low or above, whether he was close or at a bit more of a distance, whether he was bladed or more square on, Loma had an answer to it. He was prepared for the variety of attempted clinches, and also Harvey Dock, the referee, in general did a very good job. But basically, Haney wasn't allowed to clinch Lomachenko. Another area where Loma had an awful lot of success is in cutting off the ring. Devon Haney wasn't running in this fight, but on a few occasions where he did seek to get separation and get himself some time, you saw how good Loma was at being able to match him foot speed for foot speed, stay right in front of him and keep the pressure on, and then often lead with a power punch when he's in that position, because as Haney's exiting, he's jumping off the floor, he's hopping away, and so he doesn't have his feet beneath him and can't punch. And Loma was aware of that, so as he's chasing him, he's also releasing punches at the same time. Okay, these are little areas that you need to learn from. But can Prograis do these things? Well, first and foremost, Prograis does not cut the ring off like Lomachenko. We saw in his last fight against Zorrilla, for instance, there were far too many easy exit routes that were offered to Zorrilla as a gift. Now, in some ways, Zorrilla is quite similar to Haney. There are very different aspects to their games as well. I'm not saying they're carbon copies at all, but he's a tall, rangy guy, and he liked to get on the back foot in this fight and move around the ring. Now, he carries a lot more power than Devon Haney. He's got a high knockout ratio, and you could see that perhaps Prograis was somewhat concerned about just running in on him. Maybe the power was a concern, but even then, you could see that one of the reasons he was being forced to reset consistently is because of the way he moves his own feet. Because when Regis Prograis is moving around the ring, particularly to his own right, he hops in and he brings his feet too close together, as you can see there. And that requires you to then set and reset. And we'll talk about another area that could cause Prograis problems in this particular fight as well. But basically, a simple lateral movement and then changing of direction was causing Prograis problems. There's nothing too creative here from Zorrilla. He's not changing the speed and holding his feet and then quickly stepping out. It was pretty basic, and Prograis looked a little bit lost. Now, the other way that this can cause you some issues is that it makes you easier to clinch just before you reset. So when Zorrilla was disengaging and moving around, just before Prograis is able to set his feet and ready to punch, you saw that Zorrilla would lead with a right hand, as you can see here in slow motion, leads with a right hand and tie him up and nullify Prograis, and therefore he's winning those exchanges because he's the only one punching in those moments. So far, a lot of the areas that Loma had success, it's not really conducive to Prograis having success. Well, there's another area that also applies in, And that is the method of Prograis' weight distribution. It makes him plant roots. He's not as light on his feet as somebody like Lomachenko. Now, this is not a limitation per se, because there are different styles. James Toney, for large parts of his career, was quite flat-footed too, but would use a lot of rotation, a lot of upper body movement, changes of the levels, and then counter you off of that. He would bump you, he would create new angles on the inside, and Regis Prograis himself does some very high-level stuff. He distributes that weight onto that lead foot in order to get off a big power shot from there, but he's also pivoting off of that lead foot to create new angles inside the pocket. He's rolling, he's deflecting, he's looking to create openings whereby he will capitalize on you overcommitting. So it's not that he's not a very good fighter, but the reason this doesn't necessarily marry up well with Devon Haney is because, as you could see in a couple of these clips, and I've shown some clips here where he's successful with the movement on the inside, that rolling, but there's also moments where he falls short. The reason I've shown you a mixture here is because Devon Haney is not somebody that commits. If you're going to jump in on Prograis and hold the pocket and throw at him, then sure, a lot of these little rolls and movements, the way he distributes his weight onto that lead foot and then pivots off of that to create a new angle and then will end up throwing a power shot at the end of it all, that could get you into trouble. But because Devon Haney's more than happy to make a fight boring and punch you from out of range, is Regis Prograis going to be able to follow him out? Because when you're planted and you've distributed your weight onto that lead foot, it becomes a lot harder. George Kambosos does this as well. Now, George Kambosos is an orthodox fighter, Prograis a southpaw, so the angles are different. But there is a certain similarity there in the way that they're both looking to counter your initial lead shot by putting their weight onto their lead foot, bypassing that first shot and then jumping in with a combination. And often, as you can see here, just like Kambosos, when he throws that backhand, that foot comes off the floor. And we saw how Kambosos had a torrid time against Devon Haney. The other thing is the jab. Prograis' stab jab could be quite interesting in this particular fight because there isn't much coverage to it. So on paper, you're just thinking, well, he's not going to be able to reach Devon Haney, right? Because he's not leaning into it. He doesn't step into it wide the way Haney does. But what he does do is he can be quite active with it. And just by being active and punching the lead hand of the other opponent and keeping it active and in the face of the other opponent, you can cut off the trajectory of the other guy's jab. And that's what Prograis tends to do quite well, in the sense that it enables him to make it a battle of the backhands more often than not. The problem that he has is that he keeps his lead hand quite low, though. Sometimes he'll even roll his hands before throwing the jab and stuff like that. In other words, he leaves an opening from the shoulder of the opponent to his chin. So there's a possibility here that if he's out of range and he's not being consistent enough with the jab, that the line for the path of the jab is actually going to be open for Devon Haney. And that would not spell good news for Regis Prograis at all, unless he's using it as a trap and he's looking to time a Haney jab with a backhand of his own. But again, he's going to have to be willing to take a risk and be able to bypass that jab in order to get off his own power shot. Because as we've seen, he doesn't follow you out particularly well. But where Prograis can do very, very well is to target the body. This is a big puncher. And like I said, he rolls with shots and he targets that body well. And he carries power behind it. And if he's able to slow Devon Haney's legs down by landing consistently to the body, who knows if he could slow him down enough later on in the fight to then be able to land more consistently as the fight wears on. Now, something you also have to understand is that, yes, he's got to decimate that liver, like I said. But look at that little clip there, which I'm going to slow down for you here. You see how he's stepping in with that lead hand low? And he's almost cocking. You know what's coming. He's telegraphing that. Devon Haney might be able to use a jab or a check left hook and pivot out and make Prograis struggle to get close. So I'm showing you now clips of Jojo Diaz because I think he needs to take a page out of Diaz's book. Rather than looking to do what Kambosos did and keep that lead hand low and try to counter that left hand of Haney's in a bid to try and let go of volume up close to try and outwork Devon Haney, instead use the high guard as a shield to walk through the jab. And you can mix that up. You can use it as a trap. There can be moments where you offer the high guard to draw a shot and then counter from there, slip the shot. He's got that upper body movement, but he just needs to use it, in my opinion, because I'm not sure he's got the foot speed. So if it can help him get close enough consistently, he could be in a position like Jojo Diaz late on in the fight where he's landing consistently. And Regis Prograis is not Jojo Diaz. If he's hitting you consistently to the body and to the head, you're going to know about it. But what happens when he does get in there? How does he go about making that work count? Well, for me, he's got to consider varying going upstairs to downstairs and vice versa. He's got to keep that variation. Remember, the minute you hit Haney the first time or he feels under duress, you might not even land. His go-to is to duck. So because his go-to is to duck, the best thing you can do is make sure that your second shot goes low. If you're going to lead with a power shot to the head, that's fine. You're going to lead with a jab to the head, that's fine. But your second shot, he will not stay on the line for. So if you were to throw, for instance, a low left hook to the liver, or a right hand to the body, or a backhand to the body, to the solar plexus, and you vary in the way he's doing in this sequence here, in that scenario, if he ducks, he could potentially duck onto the shot. If he ducks on a clock face towards 3 p.m. and you've thrown a low left hook, you can land right on his head. If he doesn't, you're going to land to his body. If he ducks forward, you're still going to land to the body. So he needs to consider how to maximize the chances of a shot landing. Don't go headhunting. Don't start throwing consecutive hooks to the head. He will change the level, smother you, tie you up, and frustrate you. Make sure in the first 8 rounds, you are battering that body. And then as you slow him down in the last 4, that's when you can start to contemplate leading with power shots upstairs consecutively, throwing 1s and 2s and 3s when it comes to the head, rather than trying to do it early when Haney is still fresh. So that's my take on what Prograis needs to do. But I just feel as though stylistically speaking, this fight favors Devon Haney. I think there are too many areas where he's superior from a technical perspective to Prograis. Prograis may very well have worked on things since the Zorrilla fight. We might see a completely different guy. He does have the punch and power to turn this around at any given moment. He goes to the body very, very well. It'll be interesting to see if he can land sustained body attacks to Devon. But for me, if he's going to win the fight, he's probably going to need a knockout. And whilst I can't rule that out, we've seen Devon Haney hurt by much lesser punches than Prograis. I have a feeling it will be Devon Haney that looks very, very good for the vast majority of this fight, perhaps with 1 or 2 scary moments towards the end, but we'll probably see the fight out and win on points. That's my prediction. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on that subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.